Welcome guys. The turret traversal bug has been fixed, and so I'm going to do an updated torpedo tutorial because the last one I did, the turret traversal bug was in effect, so some of the information might be a bit outdated, so I decided to do a new one. Right, so the first thing that you need to pay attention to is the speed of your torpedoes. So the first thing that you really want to do is unlock these fast torpedoes. But at the very start of the game, 1890, you'll only have standard torpedoes, so they will be rather slow. So if we hover over, it says that the torpedo speed is 25 knots. Now, if the enemy ship is higher than 25 knots, or similar to 25 knots, which as you can see, I've got a torpedo boat, mine is 31.2 knots. It means that the enemy ship is faster than your torpedo is. So unless the enemy ship is heading towards you, your torpedoes won't fire because it knows that your torpedo's not fast enough to actually catch up with the enemy. So if you're heading towards them and they're going away from you, and they are 25 knots or faster, or even just a little bit slower than 25 knots, because the torpedoes have got a limited amount of time that they spend in the water before they self-detonate, they need to be able to catch up in the time, in the distance before the timer runs out. So if they're only 24 knots, let's say, the enemy, then you're only catching up 1 knot. Like your torpedo's only 1 knot faster than them. So you would need to be very close to them for it to bridge the gap when you've only got a 1 knot speed advantage over them before it self-detonates. So that is one of the major reasons that torpedoes don't fire. Another reason is, although on the torpedo itself, which I'll show you now, it doesn't have an accuracy stat like guns do. So I'll just get into range to demonstrate. So guns will have an accuracy stat down here. Well, your torpedoes don't have this stat, but they do still use accuracy to determine whether or not to shoot or not. And this aggressive and save and normal will factor in the accuracy of the shot. So if the enemy is really small or doing a really tight turn, then your ship won't fire. So it'll only fire if it's got a good enough accuracy. But the torpedo itself doesn't tell you what the accuracy is. It just gives a dash. So you can't use that as a guide. You just need to know in the back of your mind it needs to be fired against a ship that's heading in a straight line, basically. So you see here it hasn't got an accuracy stat, unlike the guns do, but it does actually still use an accuracy modifier to decide whether or not to shoot, which is why you have these save, normal and aggressive. So if you want it to fire when it's got a very low accuracy, then put it on aggressive. If you want it to fire when it's got only when it's got a high accuracy, then set it to save. Okay, so that's the speed and the accuracy that's explained. So next up really is the direction. So with deck torpedoes, you can basically aim a deck torpedo all the way around the ship because it can traverse. Well, with underwater torpedoes, you don't have that luxury. They can only fire in a very slim arc from where the angle is, whether it's broadside or forwards and backwards. So I'll show you now with an underwater torpedo the firing arcs that will be required. It looks like the devs have changed the way underwater torpedoes work and have given them a much wider arc. So as you can see, this torpedo, I haven't changed the heading of this ship, and it looks like this torpedo's heading practically forward and not sideways. Before, it used to have a very slim, thin arc that they could fire to the side, where now, obviously, that's practically forward. So you can ignore this bit of information, advice, that you need to be sideways on to where they're going to be, because obviously now side torpedoes can fire practically forward, apparently. So as you can see there, the firing arc when my ship was here is more forward than it is sideways, which is pretty insane for a sideways facing torpedo tube. So I think he fired when I was approximately here based on the trajectory. So yeah, that's more forward than it is sideways. So you don't need to worry too much about the firing arcs of underwater torpedoes. So the one thing that I will mention is the distance that the torpedoes travel before they self-detonate. Unless it's been changed, all torpedo types will travel twice the distance, twice the range. So if it's got a 6 kilometer firing range, then it'll travel 12 kilometers before it detonates. Apart from fast torpedoes, which have got a little bit further range. Can't remember whether it's 2.5 times or 3 times. So if it's 6 kilometers, it'll either be 15 or 18 kilometers before it self-detonates. So that is basically the three things: is arc, which doesn't really make too much difference anymore since the changes to these underwater torpedo tubes. Distance before it detonates, which will be determined on your torpedo speed versus the enemy ship speed, and obviously their heading. So if they're heading away from you, you'll have to be a lot closer inside your range before it'll actually fire. And then the other is accuracy, which is basically if you've got your torpedoes set to save, then they'll require a lot closer accuracy, a lot closer distance, so the accuracy is higher, gives you a more chance to hit. Now, like I say, you haven't actually got an accuracy reading on your torpedo, so you can't use that as a demonstration, but you can think of it in terms of distance. So at maximum distance, you might only have, let's say, a 1% accuracy, and then at short distance, you might have a 20% accuracy. So there is accuracy in the torpedoes, it's just not demonstrated on here. You can actually see that in the torpedo tech during the campaign. It'll say torpedo accuracy increased 5%, things like that. So they are the three different things. So I'll try and demonstrate how best to use torpedoes in a combat situation. So in my opinion, deck torpedoes are the best way to go. So what I'll do is I'll design a ship with deck launchers, and then I'll demonstrate the best system, in my opinion, to actually utilize them in battle. Okay, so you preferably want all of your torpedoes deck launchers to be able to fire at the same time as each other. So you don't want one of your torpedoes to have a firing arc that will fire a lot sooner than the others, because then that'll just make the enemy turn before the other launchers have fired, and then all of the other launchers will miss. So you want all of them to have a front-facing arc the same as all of the others, so they all fire simultaneously. The other thing is, you preferably want your torpedo launcher to have 2 kilometer minimum range rather than 1 kilometer or 700. So when you go on fast torpedoes, it actually cuts the range down. So you would want a standard range of either 3 kilometers or 5 kilometers. So when you put it onto fast, it's 2 kilometers or 3 kilometers. And then I usually just go for reduced ammo, fire 1 load of torpedoes. Looks like that's too big. There we go. So you just fire 1 load of torpedoes and then escape. Okay, so this is basically the type of ship that I would use as a torpedo boat. Later on, you would, when you're designing destroyers, you'd want to put some guns on. But if it's just a pure torpedo boat, you don't need to worry about the guns. So I will demonstrate how to actually do a successful torpedo attack. So, in my opinion, you want all of your ships in individuals so you can control each one individually. So this is the best way to do it. So what you can do when the battle starts is put them in a follow line, but unfortunately there's a bug at the moment which is it causes a follow line crash. So it's a bit awkward trying to work around the bug, but I think the devs know about it, so hopefully they'll fix it. So turn everybody's torpedoes to off. You want them to fire when you actually are ready to fire, not too early. So you'd want the first ship to go. So he's heading towards me, actually. Really, we want a situation where he's heading away from us, because that's where it's actually challenging. If they're heading towards you, it's really easy. So let's see if he will turn. So if you've got multiple ships or multiple divisions selected, to control them all without setting them into a follow order, you just hold down the control button and right click. That tells them all individually to move to that direction. If you right clicked without holding control, it will set them all in a follow line like this. So what I usually do at the start of the battle is set them in a follow line so they all spread out. You have to do this before getting into shooting range, so you don't get the follow line loop crash. Okay, so the enemy's facing away from us now. He's not actually retreating, so this is gonna be too easy. Wanted it to be at least slightly challenging for the demonstration. Might need to design a different ship. So what you'd want to do is with your lead ship, send them one direction. I usually go, if they're heading left, then I would send the right ship, the front ship to the right. This is a pain in the arse with him heading towards me. I'll see if I can demonstrate anyway. So the first ship you want to go behind him. The second ship you want to go the opposite side. And then the third ship you want to go straight at him. So the first ship you fire around about now. to get him to turn. Then you retreat with this one. This will then turn him to face this ship. Then you turn the torpedoes on with this ship to fire from this direction. And then you've got this third ship which can come in and finish him off depending on which way he turns. If you're facing a more agile opponent, he might have dodged both of them, and then the third ship can come in and hit him from whichever angle he turned to. Okay, so I'll attempt to get a ship running away from us. Let's see if a heavy cruiser will work. So the first thing I do is detach everybody so they're all in individuals, turn everybody's torpedoes off, set them into a follow line a follow line, just by right clicking with all of them selected. Then control the first ship. Hopefully the enemy's gonna run away from us, which he's coming towards us again. How bloody frustrating. Right, it looks like he might be going away from us if we just turn this way a little bit. Right, okay, this might be a bit more challenging now because he's heading away. So, the first ship goes on the outside of him, so because he's heading slightly to the right, the first ship would go slightly to his left, second ship will cut inside, and then the third ship goes straight at him. Okay, so we've got him pincered now. This guy can shoot first because he's closer. That'll then get him turning the other way. So now this guy can come in. We don't even need to. If he was more agile, we would then fire from this direction and finish him off. But obviously we wouldn't need to. And then you've got this third ship that can come in. So we'll try again. One more time. With a light cruiser. I suppose I only need 3 torpedo boats. So split them up into individuals, get them in a follow line, turn all the torpedoes off. The enemy's to the north. Oh. Looks like he's the lead ship. Hopefully we'll get him to turn away from us. If they're heading straight at you, it's incredibly easy to torpedo them. Which is why I'm trying to get them to head away from me. Okay, so first ship goes on the outside of him, second ship on the inside, Third ship straight at him. So it looks like this one's going to be the first one that I'm going to fire with. Then once he's fired, turn away. Unfortunately, because he's actually heading to... he keeps turning it in towards me, which is making it too easy. Let's see if a torpedo boat will try and escape. I don't want it easy. I don't want to hit him with the first salvo. I want to show you how to shoot if they dodge the first salvo. Right, hopefully he carries going away from us. Oh, he's not going away from us, he's coming straight towards us. What a nightmare. Why are they making it so easy? Right, it might still be challenging because it's a torpedo boat, so let's just give it a go. So we've only got a 2-knot speed advantage over him. So the first ship goes on the outside, second ship on the inside. The third ship is going to take an eternity to catch up, unfortunately. And then with the third ship, you can obviously come in and finish him off. There we go. I think that was a good enough demonstration. And then in a combat scenario where there's multiple ships, multiple enemy ships, you just retreat with all of these now because they've fired the torpedoes, they've done the job. Obviously you wouldn't be firing torpedoes at a torpedo boat. You'd be aiming at capital ships preferably, but that was the only way I could demonstrate how to fire it when they dodge the first salvo. Okay, anyway, hope that's been helpful. Cheers for watching, take care, I'll see you soon.